EARTHLINGS by Sayaka Murata. Chapter 1. Deep in the mountains of Akishina, where Granny and Grandpa live, fragments of night linger even at midday. As we wound our way up steep hairpin bends, I gazed out the window at the swaying trees, at the undersides of the leaves so swollen they looked as though they would burst. That was where the pitch-black darkness was. I always felt an urge to reach out to that blackness, the colour of outer space. Next to me, Mom was rubbing my sister's back. "Are you okay, Kize? These mountain roads are so steep. No wonder you're feeling carsick." Dad gripped the steering wheel, saying nothing. He was driving slowly to keep the car as steady as he possibly could, glancing anxiously at Kize in the rearview mirror. I was 11 and in year 5 of elementary school. I could take care of myself. Looking out of the window at the fragments of the universe was the best way to avoid getting carsick. I'd worked that out when I was 8 and hadn't been sick on this road since. My sister was 2 years older than me, but she was still just a child and wouldn't survive the journey without Mom's help. As we drove up and up around endless bends, ears popping, I felt like I was gradually moving towards the sky. Granny's house is high up, close to the universe. I hugged my backpack to me. Inside it was my origami magic wand and my magical transformation mirror. At the very top of the backpack was my best friend Piotr, who gave me these magical objects. Piotr can't speak human since the evil forces put a spell on him, but he's looking after me, so I won't get carsick. I hadn't told my family, but I was a magician, a real one with actual magical powers. I'd met Piotr in the supermarket by the station when I was 6 and had just started elementary school. He was right on the edge of the soft toy display and looked as though he was about to be thrown out. I bought him with the money I'd received at New Year's. Piotr was the one who'd given me my magical objects and powers. He was from planet Pobopia. The magic police had found out that Earth was facing a crisis and had sent him on a mission to save our planet. Since then, I'd been using the powers he'd given me to protect the Earth. The only other person who knew my secret was my cousin Yu. I was dying to see him again. I hadn't heard his voice for over a year. We only ever got to see each other in the summer, when our extended family gathered for the annual Obon festival. I was wearing my favourite t-shirt, the indigo blue one with stars on it. I'd bought it with my New Year's money, and put it in the closet, still with the price tag on, keeping it especially for today. "Hold on tight," Dad said quietly as we approached a particularly sharp bend. The car lurched as we went around it. My sister grunted and covered her mouth with her hand. "Open the window to let in some fresh air," Mom said, and instantly Dad opened the front window on my side. A warm breeze caressed my cheeks, and the car filled with the smell of leaves. "Kize, are you okay?" Mom sounded like she was about to cry. Dad turned off the air conditioning. "Only one more bend," he said. I instinctively clutched the front of my t-shirt. I could just make out the slight swellings beneath my bra. They hadn't been there last year. Had I changed a lot since then? Yu was the same age as me. What would he think? We would soon reach Granny's house. My boyfriend was waiting there for me. My skin grew hot at the thought, and I leaned forward into the breeze. Cousin Yu was my boyfriend. When had I started to feel this way about him? Even before we got together, I'd always been drawn to him. We'd been inseparable during the Obon vacation every summer, and even after Obon was over, and Yu went to the Yamagata and I went to Chiba, his presence never faded within me. In my memory, The traces he left grew stronger and stronger, and by the time I was really longing for him, it was summer again. We were 9 years old, in year 3 of elementary school, when we first formally promised ourselves to each other. Our uncles had dammed the shallow river by the rice fields with stones to make a knee-deep pool where we cousins could splash about in our bathing suits. "Ouch!" I cried as I lost my footing and fell on my butt. "Careful, Natsuki. The river flows fastest in the middle," Yu said, his face serious as he helped me up. I'd learned that in school, but I hadn't made the connection with this little river. "I've had enough of water," I said. "I'm going to play somewhere else." I climbed onto the riverbank, picked up the small shoulder bag I'd placed carefully on a rock, and put on my beach sandals. Without waiting, I went up the steps to the road again, still in my bathing suit, headed for the house. The bag felt alive, warmed by the sun's rays. As I walked alongside the rice fields, I could hear footsteps and knew Yu was following me. "Natsuki, wait for me!" "Leave me alone," I snapped. Yu reached out, picked some small leaves, popped them into his mouth. I couldn't believe my eyes. "You can't eat that. You'll get a stomachache." "Don't worry, it's edible. It's called sourdough. Uncle Teriyoshi told me." He held some out to me. I took them and hesitantly put them in my mouth. "Ugh, it's so sour." "Yeah, it is a bit, but it's good." "Where did you find it?" "There's lots growing around here." We walked around the slope behind the house gathering sourdough leaves, then sat down next to each other to eat them. My bathing suit was wet and uncomfortable, but I liked the taste of the leaves. Now that my mood had improved, I said, "Since you showed me something you like, to say thank you, I'll let you in on a secret." "What secret?" "Well, actually, I'm a magician. I have a transformation mirror and a magic wand." "What sort of magic can you do?" "All kinds. The best spells help you defeat enemies." "Enemies?" "I mean, maybe ordinary people can't see them, but there are lots of enemies all around us. Bad magic, monsters, that sort of thing. I'm always doing battle with them to protect the earth." I took Piot out of my bag. He looked like a white hedgehog plush toy, but actually he was an emissary sent by the magic police on planet Popinpobopia. Piot had given me the magic wand and mirror to help me use my magical powers, I explained. "Wow, Natsuki, that's amazing," Yu said, his face serious. "It's thanks to you protecting the earth that we're living in peace." "Right. Hey, what sort of place is that planet What's it called again?" "Popinpobopia." "I don't really know. Piot said it was secret." "Oh." I thought it was weird that you seemed more interested in the alien planet than my magical powers, and I looked at him closely. "Why did you ask?" "Why do you ask?" Well, don't tell anyone else, but I have a secret too. I'm an alien." "What?" I exclaimed, taken aback. "Mitsuko is always saying so," he went on with a serious tone. "You're an alien," she says. "You were abandoned by spaceship and I took you in." "Wow, really?" Mitsuko was Yu's mum. She was Dad's little sister, so I called her Aunt Mitsuko. She was really pretty. She was shy and quiet, just like you. I couldn't imagine she would lie or joke about something like this. You know what else? In my drawer, there's a stone that I don't remember having picked up anywhere. It's black, flat, smooth, and a really weird shape. So I think it must have come from the same place I'm from. Wow. So, I'm a magician, And you're an alien. Well, I don't have any proof. Not like you, Natsuki. But I'm sure it's true. Maybe you're actually from planet Popopia. Wouldn't that be amazing? You might be from the same planet as Piotr, I said excitedly, leaning forward. I wonder. If so, I want to go back home someday. I was so shocked I almost dropped my mirror. What? Every time I come here for Obon, I'm always secretly looking for the spaceship that will come and take me home. But I haven't found it yet. I wonder if Piotr can arrange for it to come and get me. No way! Piotr can't do that sort of thing. I felt like crying. I couldn't bear the thought of you not being around. You! Are you going to go away sometime? Probably. I think it would be better for Mitsuko if I did anyway. After all, I'm just an alien that she took in, not her real son. I burst into tears. Natsuki, don't cry, he said, rubbing my back, trying to console me. But I like you. I don't want you to go away. But they'll come to get me sometime or other, I think. I've been waiting for the spaceship for ages. Yu's words made me cry even harder. I'm sorry, Natsuki, but while I'm still here on Earth, I'll do anything for you. I feel calm when I'm here at Granny's house. I think it's because it's closer to space, so it's nearer to home for me. But it's also because you're here too. Really? Then I want you to be my boyfriend until you go back to your own planet. Yu nodded. Sure. Really? You mean it? Yes, I really like you too, Natsuki. We hooked pinkies and made 3 promises. 1. You won't tell anyone that I am a magician. 2. I won't tell anyone that you's an alien from outer space. 3. We won't fall in love with anyone else even after summer's over. We'll definitely meet up here again next summer. Just then I heard footsteps. Hastily, I hid Piotr and the mirror inside my bag. It was Uncle Teryoshi. So this is where you got to. I thought you'd been washed away by the river. Uncle Teryoshi was always cheerful and played a lot with us children. Sorry, we apologized. He smiled and stroked our heads. Oh, you got some sourdough. Do you like it, Natsuki? It's quite sour, but tasty. Yes, I do like it. You do? That means you're a real mountain woman now, then. All right, come along. Granny's looking for you because she's cut up some peaches. Okay. We headed back to the house together. I could still feel where my pinky had hooked Yu's. I ran to the front door, hoping no one would notice I was blushing. Yu, too, was walking fast and looking down at his feet. Ever since then, Yu has been my boyfriend. The magician would be the girlfriend of the alien, at least until he travelled back to his home planet. Granny's house opened onto a huge hallway, which was easily as big as my room at home. I always felt a bit lost going inside. We're here, Mum called loudly. Dad, as usual, remained silent. It smelled of fruit, a mix of peaches and grapes, along with a faint animal odour. The neighbours kept cows, but they were some distance away, so maybe the animal smell in this house came from us humans. Oh, come on in, it's hot today, isn't it? The shoji slid open, and an older woman, probably an aunt, came out into the hall. I thought I remembered having seen her before, but I wasn't sure. We only came here once a year for Obon, and I had trouble telling the various adults apart. Kisei, Natsuki, you've gotten so big. Oh, you brought gifts, you shouldn't have. Sorry you went to all that trouble. You remember Natsuko? She's done her back in and can't come this year. As Mum greeted the gaggle of vaguely familiar middle-aged ladies one by one, they all started chatting excitedly. This was going to take ages, I thought, sighing quietly. The ladies had gotten down on their hands and knees and were bowing to each other. Dad stood vacantly in the entrance. Granny and Grandpa appeared from the living room, supported by a middle-aged man. Granny bowed to Mum and said, "Thank you for coming all this way." Grandpa smiled at me and said, "Miss Akko, you've gotten so big." "Come on, Grandpa," an aunt said, patting him on the back. "This is Natsuki." "You took a long time," Uncle Teryoshi said cheerfully to Dad as he came out. "Did you run into traffic?" Uncle Teryoshi always spent a lot of time with us kids, so I knew him really well. He called out over his shoulders, "Hey, you guys, Kise and Natsuki are here." 3 boys came out hesitantly. They were always getting up to mischief, and every year they got told off by the adults. The oldest, Yota, was 2 years younger than me. They looked at me and Kise like wary animals. I recognized them all, but they were very different from how I remembered them. The features on their faces had spread out to the edges, and their noses were more prominent than before. Their bodies had changed too. I would always recognize my boyfriend, Yu, of course, but I had a lot of other cousins, and some of them already had their own children, so I felt a little disoriented whenever we met. Even though we all spent every summer here and had a lot of fun together, after a whole year of not seeing each other some distance had always opened up between us again. The adults were embarrassing us, saying things like, "Hey, no need to get all shy because those 2 have gotten so pretty." Yota and his brothers looked even more awkward and standoffish than usual. "Hello," I ventured. A rather self-conscious chorus of "hello" came back. "Yu's here too, you know," Uncle Teryoshi said. "He's been asking when you were going to arrive." Trying hard to keep my cool, I said, "Really? Where is he now?" "He was doing his homework just over there not long ago." "Maybe he's up in the attic now." "That boy likes it there." This came from Cousin Saki, a tall woman who was much older than me. She was holding a baby. She was the oldest of Aunt Ritsuko's 3 daughters, all of whom were married. Aunt Ritsuko was Dad's eldest sister. It was the first time I'd seen this baby. It was kind of weird how a new person that hadn't existed last year had suddenly come into being. The little girl crouching at Saki's feet must be Miwa, who had been a baby just last year. I couldn't remember all the kids who were close in age to me, let alone my cousin's kids, and had to relearn who everyone was every year. I just followed what Mum did and bowed my head at each new person who appeared. "Oh, is Mitsuko here?" "Sure, she's in the kitchen." "Where's you got to?" Aunt Ritsuko put in. "He's been asking for Natsuki all morning." "Maybe he couldn't wait any longer and went off to have a nap," Uncle Teryoshi laughed. "You always sticks close to Natsuki, doesn't he?" They probably said the same thing every year, but considering we were an item now, I quietly looked down, feeling embarrassed. It's true, the 2 of them are like twins. Another aunt said, "For some reason, everyone said I didn't look like my sisters or my parents, but I did look like you." "Oh, but you mustn't stand out here in the hall talking. Kisei, Natsuki, come inside, you must be tired." A fat aunt I had absolutely no recollection of ever having before said this and clapped her hands. "Yes, let's go in," Dad said, nodding. "Go put your luggage upstairs. You can use the far room. The Yamagatas are in the other one. The Fukuokas are already up there. But they're only staying for one more night, so you don't mind sharing, do you? Fine by us, thanks, Dad answered, taking off his shoes. I hurried after him. In Granny's house, everyone called the various families by the name of the places they lived in, like Yamagata or Fukuoka or Chiba, which made it hard for me to remember their real names. They must have had real names, though, so why didn't anyone use them? Kizei, Natsuke, first go greet your ancestors, Dad said. We headed for the room where the family altar was kept, between the living room and the kitchen. You and I always called this the altar room. There was only one corridor in Granny's house, leading to the bathroom. All the other six rooms on the first floor, including the kitchen, living room, and the two main tatami rooms, were connected by sliding doors. The altar room was a modestly sized 6-mat room, about the same size as my bedroom back home in Mirai New Town in Chiba. Yota called it the ghost's room to frighten his little brothers, but somehow I always felt safe in there, perhaps because I sensed that my ancestors were watching over me. Mum and Dad each lit a stick of incense, and my sister and I did the same. We didn't have an altar at home. I'd never seen them in my friends' houses either. The only times I'd ever smelt incense were here at Granny's house and when we visited temples. I liked the smell. After lighting her incense stick, my sister suddenly crouched down, her head bowed. Kizei, is something wrong? She seems she got a bit car sick on the way. Oh dear, that mountain road again. The aunts laughed. One or two of my cousins also joined in, covering their mouths with their hands as they shook with laughter. I had more than 10 cousins just on my dad's side. I couldn't remember all their faces. Nobody would notice if an alien slipped in among them. Kizei, are you okay? Mum asked as my sister suddenly brought her hand over her mouth. Dear, you'll feel better once you've thrown up, an aunt said. I'm sorry, Mum said, bowing her head in apology, and headed for the toilet, hugging my sister close. Is that mountain road really all that bad? Asked another aunt. I mean, how feeble can you get? She could always just walk up if she doesn't like riding in the car. I felt sorry for my sister. She doesn't have Pete like I do. Don't you think you should go too? I asked Dad. No, she'll be all right, he said. But when he heard her crying, he hurried off to help. I felt better now that she had both Mum and Dad with her. The phrase close-knit family, which I had come across in a school library book and had stuck in my mind, always came back to me whenever I saw my parents and sister together. If I wasn't here, the three of them would make a perfect unit. So I wanted them to spend time together as a close-knit family without me now and then. Piot had taught me the magical power of invisibility. I hadn't actually become invisible. I just held my breath and could make myself go unnoticed. When I did this, they became a cozy family of 3, all snuggled up together. I sometimes made use of the power for their sake. You really like Granny's house, don't you, Natsuki? Mum often asked me. Kizei's like me. She likes the seaside better than the mountains. Mum didn't like Granny much, and wasn't at all pleased by how excited I got about going to Akishina. My sister always complained about coming to Granny's, and clung to Mum at home, so of course she was Mum's favourite. I picked up my things and headed for the stairs. I felt nervous at the thought that you was up there. Are you okay on your own, Natsuki? Sure, I said, hoisting my backpack onto my back as I went up. The stairs in Granny's house were much steeper than the ones in our house in Chiba. They were practically a ladder, and you had to use your hands to climb up. I always felt like a cat when I went up them. "Take care," I heard someone say, an aunt or maybe a cousin. "I will," I answered without turning around. Upstairs, there was a strong smell of tatami and dust. I went through to the far room and put down my things. Uncle Teriyoshi told me that long ago this used to be the room where they kept silkworms. Apparently, there used to be lots of bamboo baskets packed with eggs, which hatched into larvae that grew rapidly and spread throughout the second floor. By the time they spun their cocoons, the whole house was full of them. I'd seen pictures of silkworms in school library books. As an adult, the worm transformed into a big, white moth, much prettier than any butterfly I had seen. I'd heard that silk thread was harvested from the worms, but I'd never got around to asking how they got the thread and what happened to the silkworms afterward. How magical it must have been to have all these pure white wings fluttering around the house. It was like something out of a fairy tale, and I loved this room where the baby silkworms had been laid out in rows. As I slid open the door to leave, I heard the floor creak faintly. Someone else was up here.